time, I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item then would be agenda item number 1, consider the approval of the minutes from the April 11th meeting, as well as the local Board of Appeal and Equalization. That meeting was held on April 17th. The council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 2 is a public hearing. This is a public hearing for the ordinance that would amend section 86-230 related to the required number of spaces in parking adjacent to appropriate zone structures. With us tonight is Ilya Gutman. I will call on Ilya to conduct this public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Council. This is a very minimal change to the parking ordinance. One of the changes, for example, is a result of people asking that whatever we have is not enough for their business, so we kind of changed it to reflect the reality. And another change is that we removed the maximum minimal requirement for parking that gives businesses better control of what they want to do. So really, that's what it is about. So it's really a minor change. It went through the Planning Commission, through the LNO, and it was introduced last meeting.
Okay. Any input from either the Planning Commission or Legislative and Ordinance Committee?
No, none from Planning Commission.
On the L&O committee, this is actually reduces the number of spots, so it's I believe a positive for businesses.
Any input either from the council or from members of the audience as part of this public hearing? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move. Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Steve to close the public hearing. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now consider the ordinance that was part of the public hearing. Questions? If not, is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim for the adoption of the ordinance related to the required number of spaces. Discussion on that motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Thank you, Ilya. Move then to the items on the consent agenda, and we'll bring those up on the screen. On the consent agenda this evening will be consider the approval of the 2023 and to 2024 Township Fire Service Agreements. Consider the approval for a temporary on-sale liquor license for the Knights of Columbus fundraiser. Consider the approval of amendments to the ordinance related to the Adult Community Center Commission. Consider the amendment regarding the snow emergency declaration, the introduction of the ordinance, amending the outside storage and calling for a public hearing. Consider the authorization to declare vehicles as surplus property for the Marshall Police Department. Consider the approval of the raffle permit for Holy Redeemer. And finally, consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of the council wants to remove for purposes of separate discussion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig to approve all of the items on the consent agenda. Discussion on that motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. So agenda item number 11, consider the request for a conditional use permit for Western Municipal Power Agency. So Ilya, you're going to introduce this, and we have representatives also that are here.
So thank you, Mayor Council. This is a area that has really been annexed into the city, and everything which is annexed is zoned agricultural. The solar panels is a conditional use for the agricultural district, and that's why it requires a hearing and comes to you. Staff thinks that they meet all the requirements for granting conditional use permits, so the recommendation is to approve it, and it went through the Planning Commission and public hearing. And the representative is here.
Okay. Any input from the Planning Commission?
Just a lot of good questions, I guess, on what to expect, but everybody was very receptive and thought it was good.
Good. And we do have the representative, if you want to come forward. And again, the hearing was held at the Planning Commission, but if you wanted, for the council's purposes, and since this is a kind of a new development in the city, we want to just say a little bit about what the intent is.
Yeah, hi. My name is Luke Gildemeister. I serve as a project developer at U.S. Solar, small business. We own and operate solar gardens. Really, I'm here to answer any questions that you guys have. The general idea, we have plans for a 10 megawatt solar garden and a 5 megawatt battery storage system named Marshall Solar Plus LLC on approximately 51 and a half fenced acres. As you guys know, the location would be on the north side of the city within city limits. Let's see here, the annexation, the project would be in the Orly annexation area. The city of Marshall staff members informed us that this parcel was annexed back in 2022. So from a zoning perspective, it's in the agricultural district. The project is under a build, own, transfer transaction structure. So in simple terms, this means that U.S. Solar is responsible for constructing the solar garden, and then we're responsible for obtaining necessary local and state permits, as well as providing engineering and project design. And then once the project is near substantial completion, we will then sell the project company, Marshall Solar Plus LLC, to Western Minnesota Municipal Power Agency, who owns the parcel.
Okay. Thank you, and thanks for that explanation. And any questions for Luke about this project? If not, back to the agenda item, the request for the conditional use permit. Are there any questions about the granting of the conditional use permit to allow this condition on agricultural zone property? If not, I would entertain a motion to allow that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Jim, second by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Thank you. Anything else you wanted to say? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move then to agenda item number 12, to consider a contract allowing MRES, which is Missouri River Energy Services, to become Marshall Municipal Utilities Administrator for new WAPA renewable energy credits. With us tonight is General Manager of Marshall Municipal Utilities, Dave Shelkoff. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before you is a contract between WAPA, MRES, and MMU, basically allowing MMU to assign administrative duties only to the WAPA renewable energy credits that are assigned to MMU, Marshall Municipal Utilities. Now, in here, there's a definition of RECs. I'd be more than happy to go through that with the council if you'd like to discuss that a little bit. But why is this important to MMU? It's because just recently, the state legislature passed an energy bill that provides a pathway to 100% carbon-free energy. It has stepping stones along that way. In 2035, for example, we have to be 90% carbon-free, and then by 2040, all utilities in the state have to be 100% carbon-free. Now, there's some off-ramps that are included in that particular bill, and one of the off-ramps for MMU would be to go to the Minnesota State Utility Board or Commission and ask for the ability to have a little more time to get green if we need to. And how you're going to do that is you would then buy RECs, renewable energy credits, to offset your carbon footprint. So with these RECs that are before you, all of our hydroelectric power that we receive from WAPA has a credit assigned to it as well. So hydroelectric power is green, carbon-free, and now we would get an additional credit that we could use to help us with our carbon footprint as we move forward. We're all excited about becoming carbon neutral and becoming carbon zero, but sometimes it might take us a little bit longer than the projected timeline that's been given us. And these RECs, these renewable energy credits, will allow us and help us make sure that we, on a responsible manner, keep the costs down and yet move forward towards a carbon-free environment. Is there any questions about that? So basically what we're asking you to do today, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, is that we have received these RECs from WAPA, Western Area Power Administration, one of our power providers. They provide about 25% of our electrical energy here in Marshall. They're giving us and assigning us some RECs, renewable energy credits. Now, renewable energy credits is actually like a marketplace. And so we have to go to a marketplace and we have to administer these credits. At the end of the year, we have to retire them. Every first of the year, we have to assign new credits to the respective utilities. And to do that requires administrative costs and work. MRES is willing to do that as our partner, as our other power supplier, Missouri River Energy Services, and provide that service for us in an administrative-only capacity. And this contract allows us to do that with WAPA. Any questions?
Questions for Dave? Thank you for that explanation. So, if there are no questions, you have the request allowing MRES to become MMU's administrator for the renewable energy credits. What are the wishes of the council?
I move approval of the request.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 13, the Missouri River Energy Services and Marshall Municipal Utilities Reserve Capacity Agreement. Once again, Dave Shelkoff, MMU.
Thank you, Mayor Burns and the council members. Again, this is another contract that's over 10 years. I forgot to mention that before. The reason why I'm before you today talking about these two contracts is that these contracts are over 10 years long, which means that by our city council, by our city charter, requires city council approval for these contracts to be legally sound. So that's why I'm here tonight, coming before you about these two particular contracts. And I failed to mention before, in my zeal to be short, both of these contracts have been approved by the Utility Commission as a recommendation to the council for approval. And both of these contracts have been vetted by legal counsel, both at MRES and MMU independently. This particular contract before you is a contract between Marshall Municipal Utilities and MRES, Missouri River Energy Services. No one else, just between the two of us. Now, Missouri River Energy Services is responsible, we call that an all power requirements part of our contract. They're responsible for providing all of the power we need over and above WAPA, Western Area Power Administration. We have two power providers for our city. So MRES is responsible for providing that power. And one of the ways that they accomplish that goal is to have reserve capacity in the MISO footprint, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but they need to have reserve capacity, reserve generation for their members here in Minnesota. So actually do it for all of their members, but I'm going to get specific about Marshall and why we need it and why this contract is here. So if you don't know this or not, but MMU has a combustion turbine. It's a jet engine that produces about 15.5 megawatts of power, and it sits right next to our office over there. A lot of people don't even know it's there. It runs about once every quarter, and we test it, and right now it's down for maintenance and some repair work. But that particular piece of equipment, that generator, is a part of MRES's reserve capacity. That 15.5 megawatts is part of their total package and how they provide energy for us, the membership of MRES. So now let's ratchet this forward. We've had a contract through 2029. Our existing reserve capacity agreement was through 2029. We've been talking together as a board at MRES and at staff at MRES on how we can best meet the needs of our membership, specifically MMU, into the future. And one of the ways we can do that is by encouraging the development of emergency or distributive generation. And that's what that big turbine is that we just talked about, is what we call distributive generation or emergency generation. And to do that, when you build generation like that, it becomes a reserve capacity, and MRES can use that when they work with MISO in providing power to us. So the whole gist of this is that we were able to look at the costs, and MRES wants to encourage their members to build new reserve capacity, but also to keep the existing capacity that we have. So they've increased the return on that for us, MMU, here in Marshall, about 250%, from $2 per kW to $5 per kW. Now, you don't need to know what kW is, but you need to understand the 2 to 5. That's an incredible increase in compensation for having a generator. So what does this do for us? It really helps us maintain and operate that generator. But also there's another caveat to this particular contract. It's an important one, in that they are encouraging their members to build new generation, which we need to do. Our generator's 54 years old, and we need to build new generation. So they're going to encourage that generation, that building of a new generation plant, by adding a kicker, a $2 per kW per month for 10 years as upfront monies after the project is completed and online, which is amazing. So for us to replace our existing generator, that's a little over $3.5 million of upfront monies that will help MMU build new generation. So if the city were to go black and we didn't have any power whatsoever, that's it. That's what we would have to turn on some residential customers and do some rolling blackouts, but we'd be able to turn you back on and let you charge up your phones, let you keep your refrigerator cool, things like that. And that generator would do that for us. And so we're looking at the future and how to replace that. This contract gives us a financial tool to do that. So the recommendation from my commission to this council is to approve this contract, and I would ask that to be done tonight.
Okay, thank you, David. Questions?
How would the project be financed to get the upfront, to get it operational and as a pay-in item?
Perfect. So Mayor Burns, Council Member Schaefer, it's a great question. We're looking at that right now. We just hired and signed a contract with our electrical consultants, DGR. I don't know if you know DGR or not. And they are right now looking at those numbers. We have to first of all understand what the total cost would be. And then we would have to look at what MRES is giving us as far as compensation for that. And then we would have to look at the overall impact that would have on our rates. Now, I believe if we can have both generator, the new generator and the old generator running, the money will be there to have zero impact on our rates. And we're probably looking at a $16 to $20 million project. And that's pretty incredible if you ask me.
What would the new, because, so this one is jet turbine.
Yes.
What would the new one be?
Great questions. So these would be reciprocating engines, diesel powered. Now, why are we going down that road? They'll have Tier 4 exhausts, according to the state requirement. But why we're going down that road is because as far as the expense to benefit ratio, these studies have been done. And right now, that is the lowest cost form of emergency generation out there. Good question. Good question.
So that would be multiple units.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We're looking at 5 or 6 to initialize a replacement of our existing generation.
Okay, so they wouldn't all have to be placed in one specific place. They could be put at substations.
We could do that, yes. The only problem with that is the complexity of operation
Okay.
and cost of doing maintenance.
Okay. Thank you.
So to clarify a couple things, first off, you mentioned earlier in your presentation, in the event of a rolling blackout, but there has not been, we still have near 100% reliability, and you anticipate that into the future, so.
Absolutely. Actually, we're prepared to help prevent that from happening.
Right. And the potential for this project is currently under study and likely would be far into the future before it would actually happen,
Yeah, it could be 2 to 3 years out, correct.
so. Other questions for David? David, are you going to introduce the other representative from MRES?
I would love
Joni?
to. I would like to introduce, this is Joni Livingston from MRES, our power provider. She also used to work here at MMU for 24 years before she went to MRES and started her career there. She's a vice president in charge of customer service. Is that would be?
Member services.
I was testing you. You did well. And anyway, so she's here tonight representing MRES and Western Min with the previous agenda item, and also kind of a moral support for me.
So welcome and welcome back, Joni.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Finally, any other questions for David? If not, you have the request and recommendation. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, before I recognize your motion, Steve, Pam, our city attorney.
in making our motion, there was a request that the contract, because it's over 10 years, get approved by the council as requested by the commission. However, there was also the request that the general manager be able to sign the exhibits directly in his own capacity. So just to be safe, I think that is part of the motion. In addition to approving it, if that's what the motion is to also delegate power to sign the exhibits to the general manager.
Okay, thank you, Pam. And Steve?
I would love to make a motion to accept and allow the general manager to sign the exhibit as recommended.
Motion by Steve, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move then to agenda item number 14, the airport snow removal equipment building. The action item would be to consider the rejection of the bids that have been received. With that, Jason Anderson, City Engineer and Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, we as we all know, we've been working for quite some time on getting a project started out at the airport for a new maintenance and snow removal equipment building. We've started this process over the last couple of years. It just takes a lot of time in securing state and federal grants and working through all the process. We finally reached the date where we would be advertising our project for bids, and we received bids on April 3rd, 2023. We only received one bid. It was from Susner Construction from Marshall for $4,346,000. Unfortunately, this amount exceeds our project budget pretty significantly. We had an estimate of 3.1, a little over 3.1 million on the construction cost for this project. It is staff's recommendation that we consider rejection of the bid received and that staff go back to the drawing board, work with the Airport Commission to reevaluate the bid package, see what we can do to make adjustments and try to bring the project back in line with where our expectation was for costs. And once we do that, bring it back through the process with the Airport Commission, PIT Committee, and City Council later in the year or early the following year for another shot at bidding this project at a later date. We did review this with the Airport Commission on April 4th. That was also their recommendation to reevaluate the project scope, work on making adjustments. We met with the PIT Committee as well this afternoon, and I guess I would turn it over to them if they have any further comments. We did have TKDA present, the architect and engineer, as well at committee to discuss. So.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Craig, any comments from the Airport Commission?
Yeah, no, Jason summed it up good. It was disappointment, a little bit of sticker shock, and then a lot of good discussion. There's really, really good members on that Airport Commission, and we've got a lot of talent and experience on there, and there's a lot of good discussion on that. And then Jason also brought that forward to the PINT. Excuse me, and that discussion continued, and it was, and I'll let them comment also, but the PINT did agree to what Jason proposed, that, we reject the bids and that they move forward and look for cleanup and alternatives, and that's all I have.
Any questions from the council? If not, is there a motion to reject the bids on this project?
I so move.
I second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. Motion does pass. Agenda item number 15 is the South First Street Greeley Reconstruction Project. We have a resolution declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering the preparation of the proposed assessment, as well as the resolution on the hearing on the proposed assessment. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. South First Greeley Reconstruction Project was completed late last year. Staff has now completed the assessment rolls for the project and allocated all the costs to each participating organization. So we're ready to declare the cost to be assessed and establish a public hearing. You see in the table in the memo and then also in the cost breakdown included with the packet that 19.9% of the costs are attributed to the wastewater fund, 36.2% to MMU for water, 5.6% for surface water management utility, 18.9% city general costs, and 19.4% of project costs being assessed to property owners. Staff is proposing a hearing date of May 23rd at the city council meeting. I can answer any questions if there are some.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Are there any questions on the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed as outlined by Jason? If not, is there a motion for that resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
seconded by John. Discussion? We'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll now consider the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment. Any questions on that resolution?
I move the resolution.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Steve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. The next two agenda items are very similar, just different projects. So agenda item number 16 is Halber Road Reconstruction Project. Once again, we'll consider the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering the preparation of the proposed assessment. And then secondly, the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. Halber Road project, industrial park project completed last year as well. Concrete surfacing, replacement of sewer and some storm sewer work. Very minor water work on the project. Costs on the project, 21.1% wastewater, 1.5% MMU, 22.4% surface water management utility, 27.4% city general costs, and 27.5% of the costs on the project being assessed to the property owners. As you indicated, similar as the last item, setting a public hearing for May 23rd and working through that.
Okay. Are there questions about the cost to be assessed and the distribution of those costs? If not, is there a motion on that resolution?
I move the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now consider the resolution declaring the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment.
I move the resolution.
Motion by Craig.
I'll second.
Seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 17 is West Lion Street, College Drive to First Street Reconstruction Project. Once again, the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering the preparation of the proposed assessment, and following that, the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment. Once again, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the roughly one block project from College Drive to First Street on West Lion near the Block 100 development project. This project was completed last year, concrete surfacing, water and sewer work, very minor storm sewer work. Of the total project, 14.8% is allocated to the wastewater fund, 28.1% to Marshall Municipal Utilities, 3.1% to the surface water management utility, 39.6% city general costs, and 14.4% being assessed to the adjacent property owners. We're also asking to establish the hearing on May 23rd. I can answer questions if you have them.
Any questions for Jason? One question, the portion of the project that was not included was a sidewalk that was adjacent to the construction of the apartment building. Is that going to be completed by that developer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion on the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed.
Move the resolution.
Motion by Craig, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now consider the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Thank you, Jason. We'll move then to agenda item number 18, which is the resolution providing for the issuance and sale of the city's general obligation bonds, Series 2023A. Are you going to handle this, EJ? I'll call on EJ Moberg, Director of Administrative Services, to present this agenda item.
Thank you. So for you tonight, I realize that the amount that is in here has subsequently been amended by the fact that the SRE building was rejected. But if you notice that the resolution does allow us to adjust that accordingly. So instead of the $6,295,000 bond issuance level, it would be a total of $5,190,000. Again, previous council meeting, you guys approved the abatement portion at $600,000, and you also went through the public hearing for the street reconstruction portion of close to 3.7. So everything has come to you at this point, except for the utility bond portion, which would be part of this tonight, although that project was earlier already approved by the council for that. So this is the funding source for the projects that are out there. The abatement portion covers the 3 parks projects this year, as well as a parking lot reconstruction. So what we're here for tonight then is to go ahead and set the sale. It's a fairly lengthy resolution along with the exhibit to it, which is part of the terms of proposal. So pretty much what you're doing is authorizing the sale of those bonds for May 23rd and to be awarded that evening, and for Baker Tilly to coordinate us being on the market for the sale, receiving bids and the like, and then we'll bring them to you that evening. Any questions?
Questions for EJ? If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion on the issuance and sale and scheduling. Motion by John, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 19, consider appointments to various boards, commission, bureaus, and authorities. Earlier this evening, the council did meet in special session, interviewed applicants for the Utilities Commission. Just a note, we certainly appreciate all the applicants to all of our boards and commissions and all of the individuals that volunteer to serve the community on our various boards and commissions. We have one opening on our Utilities Commission. We have a member who has completed his second term and is not eligible for reappointment to a term beyond the second term. So based on that, I would recommend to the council that Michael Tao be appointed to a term on the Marshall Municipal Utilities Commission that will begin May 31st, 2023, and will expire May 31st, 2028. I offer that as a recommendation to the council and entertain a motion to affirm.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim. Discussion on that motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. With that, we'll move then to Commission Board Liaison reports. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the Merit Center, a lot of really good things are happening at the Merit Center. With the additional space utilizing Classroom C, there were 13 events that took place at Merit last week alone. There are 12 events scheduled next week. Some highlights, they recently held 3 NENA, it's the National Emergency Number Association. It's for dispatchers. There were over 70 dispatchers from all over the state that either attended one or all of those courses. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension held 2-day basic crime scene investigations course for 30 law enforcement officials from over 20 agencies. They have 2 more BCA courses scheduled here in 2023 and 2 scheduled in 2024. Merit is in the current bonding bill for both the House and Senate to complete the rifle and handgun ranges and the live burn structure. So from 2022, the approximate total participants that participated at Merit was 5,219. So a lot of contact there. Just a handful of other things to hit on, like the U of M Extension Office uses private pesticide applicator training. Use that space. They had 68 people there. Mankato Police Department has used our EVOC track for training their department. There's the UCAP has done community connection volunteer training at Merit. D&G actually had a safety training at the Merit Center, and they had 68 people participate. So excellent. There's a Blue Fire Training LLC, which is a private course that teaches Fire Command for Fire Officer 2 classes, and they had 12 firefighters attend that. And then there's a Next Gen 911 committee, held their committee meetings at Merit, 15 people there. Plumology LLC conducted plumbing continuing ed courses there. So it's not just fire, it is truly industry training also. The Blue Fire LLC had an EMR, which I'm not sure what the EMR initial stands for, but they're conducting some more specialty training there. USDA has used it, and then Minnesota Farm Service Agency held their meetings there too. So they had 63 people attend that event. So it's nice to see the broad range of other things besides just emergency services, which is obviously very key and very core to Merit, but to see that other industries and professional groups use that, and I know like Avera's used it and a number of other places too, that it's getting recognized and it's getting good use. I think we should be proud of that, and Jasmine has done a great job of promoting and keeping Merit moving. So that's all I have there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Craig. Steve?
Community Center did not meet, Cable Commission did not meet. EDA actually met on Friday as opposed to Wednesday, and I couldn't get there because of work, so I'll defer to Amanda on that.
I was at the EDA meeting. We did finalize the strategic plan, I guess, for the next year, 3-5 years-ish range, and kind of just discussed making sure we stay focused on not too many items and having a good plan ahead of us. That was kind of the main thing at the EDA meeting. Planning Commission, we discussed the solar, with the public hearing for the solar panels that came before us tonight, and that was good conversation. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. From my boards, the Southwest Regional Development Commission had their bi-monthly board meeting since we last met. A couple things that are going on there. First off, they have some new staff. They have a new planner. They have a new finance director. The executive director is out on medical leave at this time. Anticipate that he will be back at some point in the future. They also had a deep dive presentation going into detail on both the history and the functionality of the revolving loan fund that the region has. This fund was originated following the 1993 floods as a disaster grant to the region for establishment of a disaster revolving loan fund, and then subsequently has revolved and continued to grow since that time. And then it was enhanced by $1.48 million of funding that came as part of the COVID response funding, and then added to that. So both of those funds really operate as one. The initial one is defederalized, so has some additional flexibility, whereas the COVID one is not defederalized at this time, but both serve the region in terms of attracting and retaining employees and providing those businesses with gap financing. I do chair the revolving loan fund for the region. The Fire Relief Association Board of Trustees had their quarterly meeting last Tuesday, or this past Tuesday. One of the functions is to provide the pension relief for the members of the fire department. The performance of the fund in 2022, especially the last quarter of 2022, was negative. However, it has rebounded, and the first quarter really showed about a 3.5% increase. They do anticipate that there'll be several retirements from the department this coming year, so there'll be withdrawals from the fund, but there's adequate funding that is there. John?
I was out of town last week, but the MMU did meet, and he gave me a bit of a breakdown of what they discussed. Excuse me. The Electric Operations Department reported the turbine generator is still down, but repairs are scheduled to be completed by the 10th of May. This is a 54-year-old piece of equipment that has performed well over the years. Unfortunately, we've experienced a major failure to the starting unit and have trouble finding replacement parts. This has been resolved and are now on track for full operation duties by the end of May. Construction projects are now starting. City will see electric crews out and about, performing maintenance and replacing underground cables, specifically working with the city on the 3rd and Lion Street project, to name one. The new electric pickup is on order and has a spot on the assembly line. Should see the vehicle sometime this summer if Ford can get their production line back up to speed. The electric department received 2 national awards for operational excellence. The RP3 award, that stands for Reliable Public Power Provider. In 2019, MMU reached the highest level of excellence, Diamond, and has not looked back. Over the last 2 years, MMU has experienced only 2 outages from MMU equipment failure affecting less than 50 customers. This is a record of operational excellence that is second to none in the nation. They also received a safety award for excellence. This is the 2nd year in a row that MMU has not experienced any safety incidents within its workforce. This is a testimony to the professionalism and dedication MMU employees apply to their craft. In the month of March, MMU provided power to our customers 100% of the time. The Water Department wants to report with the spring thaw, there comes some water main breaks as the ground thaws, it moves. This movement often causes water mains to break. For the month of March, there were 3 water main breaks that the water crew responded to and repaired in efficient and timely manner. Spring fire hydrant flushing will begin this week and will continue until the entire water main system is flushed. MMU does this to ensure quality drinking water and as a way to inspect the water distribution infrastructure. All aquifers are stable with adequate water levels to support the city of Marshall. The Finance Department reported S&P Global has awarded MMU's credit rating from A to an A+. This is huge for the utility. The current and future financial stability of MMU, along with good management practices, are the reasons for the upgrade. Finally, customer service. MMU will be implementing customer portal services this year. This will mean that many of our customers will be able to access their account online and review their water and power usage, bills, and payment opportunities. More of this in the future, but this is a great next step in customer service for your public utilities.
Good. Thank you, John. See?
The Convention Visitors Bureau met, and they will be giving $40,000 to the Legion Fields when they redo their area there, and they're going to have a party deck, so it will be named Visit Marshall Party Deck. And they still need to raise about $750,000. The city will, so a lot of money there. And then they announced their Prairie Jam September 21st over at SMSU. I think it's like the Schwann's Regional, but it's like the football field. So they will have the Eli Young Band, and they are selling tickets now. So if you're interested, it's a good show. That's all I have.
Thank you. And Jim?
The pool committee the pool committee has reconvened with the hopes that we do get an opportunity to pass that on as a vote to the citizens. So they are working on making a plan on how to get the information out on the pool. With the hopes of May 22nd, we get the opportunity to do that.
Very good. We'll move then to council member individual items. Craig?
I hope we're done with snow removal so people can park up to the curb as usual. That's all I have.
And Steve?
Nothing.
Amanda?
I don't have anything.
I just want to make a comment. I actually visited with Dean Kruger about it today. A couple of years ago, we made the choice of keeping our old street sweeper. Chatted with Dean today. They have completely cleaned the city of Marshall once already, which, I mean, look downtown. We are clean compared to other communities, which looks very nice to our citizens. I want to give credit to Dean, credit to the council for having the foresight to do that. And our city looks clean. It looks nice. So,
and in addition to that, and Craig, you can comment on this, or Jason, but in addition to being cleanly, that also keeps the sand and the chemicals out of our stormwater system and out of our rivers. So
It's huge, and that's a service we're also assisting our contractors who are fighting, trying to get busy in the spring and having the track onto the street. And the city has done an excellent job of working with business owners who have that issue out of their fixed facility sites and for contractors who are working around at different open sites. I know that's part of our stormwater management and our construction permitting. And I just think that the way the city, Public Works and our engineering department and our private sector participate together on that, I think it's a real tribute to the community and that's great. And I agree, Jim, thank goodness the council had the foresight and the ability to see the value in maintaining both sweepers. And I think economically, for the equipment too, it's going to pay, but just for the service and what we do for the environment and our community is awesome.
Well, it free, like you bring up economic, it frees up the street department to do other stuff now. I mean, they're done
Exactly.
with it, so they're
We've been
doing
working
other
on
things.
alleys now.
Well, I was thinking potholes.
Well, that's
But-
what I'm talking, alleys, potholes. It's awesome.
Anything else, Jim?
Nope, I'm good.
I see that all the scooters are out now, so just to the public, if you can just be thoughtful about where you park them, because we've been kind of seeing them blocking ways like that. So just be thoughtful about them. Thank you.
Did you have anything else?
I don't know if I was supposed to say it yet, so.
Okay. John? With that, we'll move on to the remaining items that were on the agenda. Staff reports from the city administrator, Sharon Hansen.
Mr. Mayor and Council, we have a final draft of the indoor rec study, which was done in cooperation with YMCA. And we are going to bring forward to the council during a work session, and we'll work with the city clerk. He doesn't know we're doing this yet, but May 23rd. And that, I think, will be a good discussion on the future. We did a little brief intro to some of the options to the Sports Amateur Commission, and I thought there was a pretty good support there about need. Yeah, and there's some inclusive of YMCA as well and kind of what their future may look like. And we know that it may be a long process. And Councilmember Lozinski mentioned the Aquatic Center. I think there's some rejuvenated energy about, moving forward. We still, really can't do a lot until we know if we can get the legislature to side with us, and their last date is May 22nd. Our registration for community services opens up May 3rd. It's our busiest time of year for that department. Lots of parents who are trying to figure out summer schedules, so you'll see maybe more traffic at City Hall in the first week or two of May. And we've had some conversations with pickleball participants. Some of them are back now from being in the southern states, and we don't have anything in our CIP for pickleball courts. And this is probably something maybe we talk a little bit further about when we meet with our consultant on indoor rec. But even with some striping of tennis courts, there probably needs to be a hard look on how do we want to best serve the community in this fastest growing sport in the United States right now. So yeah, lots of participants locally, and maybe we can find a way to work with them too. Other communities are building them, and so we don't want to get behind on that as well. So otherwise, lots of other random conversations, from wastewater to building inspection to talking about garbage pickup, and just, yeah, lots of random things in the last month. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for Sharon? One thing we may want to discuss, and certainly we have time to discuss this prior to that meeting, but May 23rd will be a busy meeting. We already scheduled 3 assessment hearings for that evening.
Yep.
It's the day after the legislature ends, so we will know some things about the legislative outcome, not only on major bills, but also specifically on the tax bill and our local option sales tax, whether it was included. And you mentioned the indoor recreation study discussion. So we may want to consider a work session to incorporate some of those things that really take some additional discussion.
I know, and I don't know if the attorney will comment on this, but we'll probably start talking about the marijuana legislation too. I know you and I shared some emails and shared those with our city attorney, and that may come up sooner rather than later. And I'll visit a little bit with LNO Chair as well on some steps, so.
Good. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Alcorn was pointing out some accommodations that MMU received. I should probably point out that Marshall's wastewater treatment facility earned some accommodations from the MPCA as well for outstanding operations. And reading right off the press release, there's 1,600 municipal and industrial treatment facilities in our state, and 248 qualified for this recognition. So that shows that you're in the top 16% if you think about it that way. So a nice honor, and we truly have great staff out there. Also, probably point out that the 3rd and Lion Street project started this week, so it's good to see that going. Of course, there's going to be lots of disruption, but we hope for good weather and a good project. Yesterday, the street surface came off, and today we're laying sanitary sewer. And by the end of the week, hopefully the water and sewer mains are in, and the following week they can do service lines to the buildings. So progress downtown. That's all I've got.
Any questions for Jason? If not, City Attorney Pam Whitmore.
Well, I'll just piggyback on what Sharon said. So the House has passed its version of the THC bill. It goes to the Senate on Friday, and then the Senate bill, if it passed, then they'll have to work out any differences. But everyone says it's coming for sure. So there's an existing moratorium in place for our city. It was passed, as you probably recall, and looks like July 12th, 2022. So that's something that we will be having to repeal. And then if the version of the bill that gets passed and signed by the governor has the same type of language as the House, there's a deadline for interim moratoriums by an interim ordinance. So we would be repealing the moratorium that's in existence, and I would be recommending adopting an interim ordinance, which would have to happen pretty quickly because of those deadlines.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. Any questions for Pam? If not, the remaining items on the agenda are information only for the council and public, the Public Housing Commission minutes, the Planning Commission minutes, the listing of building permits, and the listing of upcoming meetings. Is there anything else to come forward at this meeting?
We adjourn.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. The motion passes. We are adjourned.